Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Triathlete Podcast, the show where we bring to you the personal fitness stories of people around the world. Today, we have a really special guest with us, Niyati. Fun fact about Niyati, she and I were actually classmates in second grade and have known each other since way back when. I'm super privileged to have her on the show today. Her story is really, really inspiring. Niyati, thanks for agreeing to be here. And would you like to start by telling us a bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So, Ram, first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to reconnect and to be on your podcast. And yeah, our friendship goes way back. So I'm really glad that we're able to, keep in touch and pick up from where we left off. It's fantastic. A little bit about myself. My name is Niyati Tamaskar. I grew up in Bombay. That's how Ram and I know each other. Um, I moved to the United States when I was 18 to do my undergrad at Ohio State University. I did my degree in electrical and computer engineering, after which I started working for Caterpillar in Peoria, Illinois. And for the past 18 years, I've been working on electronic controls, both in the UK and US. I currently work for Cummins Incorporated, based out of Columbus, Indiana. And my current job title is Director of Power Gen Controls. And I love this title so much because it has the word director, it has power, and it has control. I mean, hands down, the best job title. And then a little bit about me, what I like to do outside of work. I really enjoy writing, so I have a blog where I like pen down my thoughts, and I did that just for fun, but uh, I went ahead and published two books. My first book is called Unafraid, A Survivor's Quest for Human Connection. It is a memoir. Even though it's self-published, Forbes picked it up as a must-read in 2020, so I'm really proud of that one. And I've done a TedX talk on the cultural bias and stigma associated with cancer. I'm really proud of that as well. And other than that, I do podcasts, fireside chats. I'm a keynote speaker, a panelist. So I tend to stay pretty active and pretty busy. But the most important part about me is that I've married the most wonderful person in the world, my husband, Nuwan Galage. He's a British Sri Lankan man who has put up with me for 13 and a half years. So that's a good sign. I think he's going to stick around. And we are raising two wonderful children. My son, Vihan, is 9, and my daughter, Arani, is 6.
Gotcha. That's a great introduction, and it's lovely to hear about your family and kind of get a sneak into what we're going to talk about today. We're a show about fitness and trying to be fit, and that's why we call everybody triathletes, anybody who's trying. So, what does your fitness routine look like today?
I try to go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week. The weather has been kind of nice, so I like to run outside about 3 miles or so about a 5K, whenever, the mood strikes, right? And then over the summer, we were working very hard at teaching our children to swim, so I ended up getting into the pool at least once a week with them. So that's kind of been my current fitness journey.
Awesome. And if you kind of dial back the clock a little bit to when you were a kid, do you kind of remember when you started focusing on fitness and what kept you motivated?
Yeah, I do actually. I learned to swim in 1980s in India at the age of 3. So basically, I have no memory of learning to swim. I just remember swimming. And that was one of my most favorite activities. Having said that, my parents worked really hard at exposing us to different sports. I was in tennis, tried table tennis, rollerblading, roller skating, all of the above. The thing with tennis, though, and all of my sports, right? I'm not a very strong athlete or a very strong person in terms of muscle. And so, like, I remember when I was learning to play tennis, when the ball like hits the racket, instead of the racket propelling the ball the opposite way, it would go in the direction of where the ball is traveling. So I was really bad at sports. And having said that, my husband asked me, what I was doing today. And I said, oh, I'm doing a podcast with my childhood friend. And my husband asked, what's the topic? And I told him it's about being an athlete. And he burst out laughing, Rom. Like he didn't say anything. He burst out laughing, but his face said, and they couldn't find anyone better. But I come from humble beginnings. I'm proud of my humble beginnings.
Well, you know what? In the book Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about how you identify yourself, and all it takes is for you to identify yourself as an athlete and a person who tries, and that's what we celebrate over here. It's will over skill. That's what I like to say, and so
Nice.
that's why you're here.
I'm
So
taking that back to my husband, by the way. Anyways, go ahead.
wonderful, and maybe someday we'll have him on the show. um, so yeah, thanks for sharing your background, and sort of how has that approach kind of changed as you've grown older, and what keeps you going?
So one of the things in the 1980s, 90s, probably 2000s in India, being skinny or thin or even petite for that matter was equated as being weak. And the kids that are chubby, like I don't know, just chubby is the only word that I can think of that's appropriate. The kids that are chubby were known as healthy because, and that stereotype really kind of hurt because people would make comments that were a little bit callous, like, oh, how come you're so thin? Doesn't your mom feed you anything? Or if the wind blows really hard, Niyati will fly away. And now I look back and none of that matters to me, right? I wouldn't be bothered. But when I was young and impressionable, it really kind of hurt that people made nothing of me because of my size. And I've always had a healthy appetite, so food wasn't a problem. I just ran on high metabolism. And so I took all of those hurtful comments and decided I'm going to change the narrative around and prove to myself, not them, I don't care what people say, but cared enough that I want to prove to myself that I'm not weak. So childhood growing up, I took up karate, did it for like 8 years, was a purple belt. I could break a brick with my bare fist. I can't do it anymore, but I could. And there's a picture of me from 1990s where my uncle took that picture of me actually breaking the brick. So that was my way of proving to myself, I am not weak. I am skinny. That's a different thing, right? Then as I got older, when I got into Ohio State, my college roommate was we were in a room of 4 girls. So there's one of the roommates was a rugby player. So she was obviously big built, strong boned, heavier person. She made comments like, oh, you're so little, you could never get pregnant. Or if you got pregnant, the pregnancy would just break you in half. And it's just really hurtful because like I never turned around and looked at the bigger, heavier set people or her for that matter and said, wow, you're fat. Like I never had that in me. Then why is it that people thought it was okay to say that to me? When I got married and stuff, people made comments, relatives made comments like, oh, she's never going to be able to breastfeed because she'll never produce enough milk. And that's just hurtful, right? And breastfeeding is a very personal choice. You should not impose your ideals and expectations of what motherhood should be on another, not even a mom yet, not even expected mom, right? On another female, period. And so I took those comments and when I had my 2 kids, decided that I'm not going to give them a drop of formula. I'm going to breastfeed them. Again, proving it to myself, not to any of the naysayers. And that's how kind of I got into, I want to prove that I'm strong. I might look skinny and little, but I have a big voice and I have big ideas and big goals.
Yeah, that's super inspiring, and I think you've touched upon sort of the role of external motivation in your choices to further your own fitness journey, right? So how do you kind of stay away from making this an externally motivated thing to making it an internally motivated thing?
Oh, that one's really simple, actually. It makes me feel better. So like, the immediate endorphins and like the happiness that you've accomplished something, and which can sometimes contrast what you do at work. Because sometimes when we're working on a problem for a few years and you still don't have a solution, but then you go to the gym and you do a 1-hour workout, you see your heart rate went up, you see immediate results, you're super happy. So that's the internal motivation.
Yeah.
That one's, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I have myself experienced that as well, where I might be stuck at something and somehow just changing the setting, making myself sort of sweat it out on the road or in the gym, kind of just triggers some kind of creative process, and you kind of blink and see something that you didn't see before that was maybe obvious. So I think
Exactly. Yeah.
yep. So that's a really cool sort of point that you made there. So do you actually set goals for yourself in life in terms of fitness, or is it more like let it go as it goes and don't worry about the results?
I wouldn't say set goals in life, but I do have weekly goals. Like if I one week I say I want to hit 5 days a week at the gym, I make sure that I start Sunday right by going to the gym, right? So those are more of the smaller goals. Before children, I did have a couple goals that were loftier. For example, I wanted to do the 4 day Machu Picchu hike. That involved a lot of training, a lot of step training, because you're just climbing up uphill so much on steps, right? So a lot of training, and then yeah, I did that 4 day hike, and it was an incredible experience. I recommend it to any and everyone. Like if you're in your journey of fitness or you don't think you're there yet, make that goal. Go to a new place, see something brand new, and it was really incredible. So mini goals, not very big goals.
I mean, climbing Machu Picchu is a pretty big goal. So yeah, maybe I can do that someday. But that's awesome.
Sure.
You spoke a bit about before and after pregnancy. So how has pregnancy kind of impacted your outlook for towards fitness?
Sure. So, during pregnancy with the first, my firstborn, Vihan, I was running outdoors before I got pregnant. And when I got pregnant, I was concerned, what activities are safe, what are not. I had asked my neighbor, who's also my OB, am I allowed to run? And he gave really sound and simple advice to follow. If you are doing an activity before pregnancy, you can continue it during pregnancy. But if you weren't doing something prior to that, so your body is not at that fitness level, don't decide to just pick up something brand new, because that would be harder. So I ran till about the first trimester. And then, sometimes you just have a gut feeling like I don't have a symptom. I did nothing hurt, nothing really happened, but just something didn't feel right. And I was like, I don't think I want to run anymore. I want to find another way to stay fit. And then my favorite activity, which I repeated in pregnancy too, was swimming. Oh, it's the greatest thing to have this massive belly and so much pressure on your back and your knees, and then to go in the water and feel like weightless. Oh, it was so incredible. The only thing is the pool that I used to go to was an indoor pool because based on what time of year it was. Um, and there's a lifeguard in the pool. I felt so sorry for him because he's like a high school kid, right? And everyone else swimming seems capable of like doing the laps, whereas like a whale of a person whose belly is bigger than their height is gets in the water and it's just like floating, and he's like, she's gonna drown, I'm gonna have two lives in my hand. The poor kid would not take his eyes off of me. I felt so sorry for him. It must have been so stressful. But I repeated swim again when Vihan was a year and a half, two, when I was pregnant with Arani, and we used to take him to the parent toddler swim lessons. So I still had the big belly, but now I had one inside, about in the oven, and one outside that I was taking care of in the pool. And every time swim's been my number one pressure relief activity.
That's hilarious. Was the lifeguard at the second pool a little more comfortable?
I didn't even notice him or her because I already had Vihan outside and one inside that I
Yeah,
didn't pay attention.
that's awesome. So, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned going swimming when you're pregnant, and going to the gym can be quite intimidating for people who are not that fit to begin with, or feel like their body's different from what they expect it to be. So, did that ever sort of come up as a concern in your mind about feeling awkward in public or anything of that nature? Yeah.
Sure. So with swim, while pregnant, I didn't really care. I think it bothered some of my family. Not Nuan, he doesn't care. If I go to the pool or if I'm wearing a bathing suit or not. But some of my family back home were like, "So is your belly showing? Like, what kind of a bathing suit do you wear?" And I'm like, this is my God-given body, and I'm carrying a life inside me. So if a bit of belly shows, well, so be it. They'll get over it. And no one in the U.S. cares, right? Like if a pregnant woman's swimming, they're not staring at your belly, other than the lifeguard who's like, she's gonna drown. I'm so worried for my job. So that part bothered other people, didn't bother me. The only other time where I was self-conscious was after finishing 7 cycles of chemotherapy, when I had rejoined the gym again. I was still bald. And I had started getting used to not having hair, but I was still bald, and I had gained weight. Now, that's counterintuitive because people think if you're going through chemo or cancer, you lose weight. It just depends on what kind of treatment you're going through. The kind that I was going through, they were giving me a ton of steroids. And so I had all this water retention. I had a hunchback and a moon face. And it's a thing, it's a phenomenon that occurs due to steroids. So I had this round face. I was bald. I had this massive hunchback that you could see, and it's all water retention. And I had gained 20% of my body weight from all of the steroids and just getting over the treatment, that I felt really conscious, because when I'd get ready to go to the gym, the person that stared back at me, who judged me the most, was the one in the mirror. Because when I saw in the mirror, it was a bald white guy looking at me. And the reason I say white, I am being specific, white, because I was anemic and had lost so much color in my tone that I looked like a bald white guy, hunchback, big round face staring back at me. And that was the hardest. And I think if you dig deep down, unless you're supremely self-confident, I think we are our worst judges, right? At least for me, I am the hardest on myself. No one else could be harder on me than me. And I think a lot of people have that in common.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think thanks for sharing, such a deeply personal story. At the end of the day, what we think matters, and the reason we started this podcast, was that it's important for people to sort of overcome their fear, overcome their sort of laziness, and overcome whatever challenges life is throwing at them, and show up, right? I think showing
Yeah.
up is more important than giving up. And it doesn't matter how good, bad, or ugly the workout is, or the effort is. I think the effort is what matters. And so that's why, being a triathlete is all about trying, and nothing else.
Yeah.
So now that you have two beautiful kids in the world, how has that sort of impacted your own personal fitness journey? And is that something you actively motivate your kids about?
Absolutely. We want to expose them to different sports so we can figure out where is their passion and where they're willing to do the hard work to get better. So, we've tried cross country. We love soccer. I find it really important to have a team activity, so everything can't be like an individual sport. I want them to know what it's like to win as a team, to lose as a team, and to depend on each other to do well as a team. And so soccer has been phenomenal for both kids for that. And then the other thing is, while I want them to try all the sports and it's important to expose them to things, there is a non-negotiable. And the non-negotiable, going back to our conversation about swim, it's swim, right? That is a life skill. That is not something I'm willing to give up on. They don't have to be Olympic level champions, but they have to be able to safely get in a body of water, stay afloat, get out of the body of water. And I want them to be confident enough to swim in open water, which can be pretty difficult and challenging, but at the same time have a healthy respect and healthy fear of water. Because if it's a natural body of water, unless you have all of the information about how deep is it, are there rocks, are there riptides, unless you have all that information, it is not safe. That's all. I mean, bottom line, is not safe. If you had all that information, it still wouldn't be safe unless you had someone on a kayak, like right there by you, for if you cramp or if a jellyfish stings you or what have you, right? So I want them to have all the confidence in swim and be really good at it, but to have that very deep understanding, respect, slight fear of water before they jump into anything.
Interesting. It's funny that you mentioned jellyfish, because I've recently started open water swimming, and I've gone to some meetup groups that do swimming in and around
Sure.
Seattle. And one of the groups actually does it year round, and they go to the beach nearby where there's actually jellyfish in the water. And the first time I went with them, I was like, are we even supposed to be swimming here? I mean, there's jellyfish here. And they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. If the jellyfish sting you, you just don't panic, come out. And, there's some basic remedies that you can do and get done with it. And I was just like, okay, that's a little too extreme for me. I'll probably graduate to that level at some
I'm
point in
not
life.
there.
I'm
I'm
not
not
there.
there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there's a ton of wildness, wilderness out there to sort of challenge yourself. Um, does nutrition play a big role in your sort of life as well?
Yes, but before we get to nutrition, as in what is good for your body, food plays a massive role in my life. It
Yep.
is it's actually kind of pathetic, because like you think like you evolve, you get older, and like you're more enlightened. At least that's what I thought I'd be. But no, I wake up thinking about food, and I have a funny food incident to tell you that happened at work today. So it's Hispanic Heritage Month, and we're celebrating by having empanadas, vegetarian chicken and beef at work for just like an afternoon snack. So we get the empanadas. I'm setting two guys come join me. I don't know them. They introduce themselves to me, and they're definitely younger than I am, right? And so we're eating the empanadas, and I was like, yeah, I was like one of the first people in line because I was so hungry, and I wake up thinking about food, and then I said, and it doesn't help that my Instagram, I follow a bunch of food Instagram posting pages, right? So like that doesn't help. And to which this guy, let's call him Bob, who's known me all of a minute and a half, says to me, I am really proud of you for having an Instagram page. And I'm like, no, he didn't. Nuh-uh. So I'm like, care to explain what part of that makes you feel proud of me? And he's like, because I don't know any 40-year-olds that have Instagram. And I'm like, wow. I was like, okay, Bob, congratulations on your last day at Cummins. May I walk you out the door, please?
Oh my
Does he
God.
apologize? No, he keeps digging a hole as to how cool it is that I have Instagram. I'm like, no, you can't do that. That's an ageist comment. And so food, clearly, at work, at home, plays a big role. And then how this spills into my family, and I'll get to nutrition, is like, for me, it's really important for my children to like spicy food, Indian food, ethnic food. So in general, not just Indian, Sri Lankan, Vietnamese, Thai, Brazilian, Italian, to have understand that food and enjoy it the way it's meant to be cooked, as authentic as possible, depending on where you are. I want them to have like this eclectic palate, which isn't just pizza and burger, right? It has to be more than that. And I feel like once you've introduced flavors to your kids, you can always go back to a boring pizza, but their taste buds have now been activated, so they'll seek out different foods. So a lot of the part of when we travel, my biggest thing is, we're going to try all the local cuisine, right? It's not going to be McDonald's, it's not going to be chain restaurants, right? And really kind of expose them to different cuisines. I think that's like such a rich part of culture. And now, having said that, I want to also tell you I've won an award for my cooking.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
not something I
So
knew about.
it's phenomenal. I was titled the world's best cooker by my daughter. And I could tell her it's a chef, but why ruin that moment, right?
Of
I'm the
course.
world's best cooker. She made a little card and it's like a certificate, and my name is Amma because, it's not Niyati, right? Amma is the world's best cooker. I'm like, that's right. I am the world's best cooker. Now, having
Wow.
established that, I am fairly conscious of nutrition. What I strive to do, and it's a simple thing as opposed to like counting your micro and macronutrients, which is one way of making sure you eat healthy food. I make sure I have as much color as possible on my plate. I think if you're not going to get into the nitty gritties of what I'm getting out of a tomato versus a carrot versus chicken, if you just make a colorful plate, you'll get a little bit of everything. And that's like an easy way, a hack, if you don't have the time and energy or the app when you have a couple kids running around to kind of see, did I check all the boxes, right? I don't follow any fads or diets. It's never been a thing for me. Food is way too important for me to give up. And having said that, we are rice eaters. We do eat rice, which is carbs. I know, and some people might think we shouldn't eat as many carbs, but we tend to stay healthy and satisfied. And because I try to have all of the colors and then different cuisines, for example, growing up, broccoli wasn't a thing, right? So like broccoli isn't in a lot of my Indian recipes, and people do make broccoli now. I'm talking about way back when. So we make sure like there's a Vietnamese place here that is a really nice broccoli teriyaki. So I make sure I order that. So even if I'm not making it at home or I don't make it all the time, there's a way of introducing a food that I'm not eating on a daily basis, right? And so that's how I balance the nutrition. I don't worry about every single detail unless there's some blood work and I'm deficient in something. I just try to have a little bit of everything, which includes like cheese. And I know a lot of people think cheese is not good. And I think you need to do what's right for your body type, your needs, and what goal you're trying to accomplish, right? So some people maybe they're overweight and they're following the paleo diet. That's on you, right? Just because I can't diet because I love food too much. Some people live or eat to live. I live to eat. But if the paleo is your call and is helping you lose weight and get to your goal, you do you, right? For me, I need to have a little bit of everything. We don't do diets. We're not giving up rice. We're going to make it as colorful as possible and try as many different cuisines to get in the different like carbs or proteins or nutrients that you wouldn't if you just ate Indian food every day or American food or fast food every day. That's how I balance it.
That's awesome. So, pro tip, guys, from the world's best cooker: try to maximize the color on your plate if you're too bored of looking at nutrition charts and trying to figure out how to count your nutrition. Color is a good way to go. So, thank you for that. Um,
Yeah.
so, you've talked about your family and, your kids are beautiful. I've seen some pictures of them.
Thank you.
How do you kind of prioritize, your routine versus their routine and your husband's routine, and sort of where do you draw the balance there?
Sure. So right now, in terms of fitness, my husband runs a half marathon every year, and he's done 13 so far. And that's his. He's a weekend warrior. He mostly runs on Saturday. Every once in a while, if he's training for something else, he'll get a weekday run in. So that's him. You know about me trying to do swim and gym 3 to 4 times a week. Try and do about 5 workouts a week. And then you know what our kids are into. So if you are learning to swim and playing soccer, cross country, things like that, if you took in terms of priority, the number one priority of this household is kids swim, because that's a life skill. They're both getting very good at it, but they're not there yet. I'm really proud of my son. He made it to the local East High School swim team. It's called Club Olympia, and like he's swimming 5 days a week, an hour and a half combination of dry land and being in the water. So like he's doing really well, but the time commitment that is, I mean, my goals and my husband's goal have to take a second seat to that. Having said that, after the kids swim being priority number one, priority number two is my husband's running. He's part of the running club. It's his, one social thing that he does. Like, unlike me, I'm doing podcasts. I'm a keynote speaker. I'm like, social butterfly. His one thing is Saturday morning runs followed by coffee. And he's a bit of a reserved person, not necessarily an introvert, but reserved. He wouldn't just go out and make, friends or new friends or strike up a conversation. But like one time I went to the coffee place where they were having coffee after a run, and I noticed like in the running club, Nuwan is the one who's coming up with all the topics to discuss. He's the social, he's cracking the jokes. Everyone's like sitting around him. And like that's where he flourishes. So like I wouldn't want to take that away from him. So I think kids swim, Nuwan's run, and then third, whatever I can fit in, in a week. But it works out okay for us as a family, and we're not competing with each other's priorities, and the time commitment to run isn't as big because he's only weekend warrior running, right? And so yeah, if we can get our kids comfortably swimming, we might have new ones run one, and then maybe mine and the kids as like a tied for second place. But we're not there yet. We're just really excited that Bihan gets to be in the swim club. Hopefully Arnie will qualify. And something, a shout out to this club, it's called Club Olympia. We live in a small town called Columbus, Indiana, and the head coach of Club Olympia represented the United States in Montreal in 1976. I mean, that's
Wow.
really cool. Yeah.
You're in
So
high
for us,
company.
exactly, for us to have access to an Olympic level champion is incredible. And I can say safely speak on behalf of the coaches, the swimmers, and the parents. We're both very proud to be associated with her. And also a little bit intimidated. I'm not gonna lie. She can be intimidating, but it's
Yeah,
very cool.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it looks like you found like a really nice sort of harmony, if you will, between, your kids' schedules, your husband's schedule, and your own. It's fantastic
Thanks.
that you've been able to achieve that, and kudos to you guys to being able to balance it all out. I mean,
Thanks.
these kind of challenges kind of affect everybody, and so what's your, I don't know, 2 cents of advice to anybody sort of in a similar situation who might be kind of trying to seek out what's the ideal plan for themselves?
Yeah, I think the simple thing is show up. Um, And that's half, for me, that's not even half. That's 3/4 of the battle won. The reason I say that is, say I'm feeling lazy, or Vihan is getting tired from swimming constantly. He protested yesterday saying, I don't want to go to swim, right? I was feeling lazy, didn't feel like going to the gym this morning because I had this podcast and things going on at work. But I said, no, let me just show up. Once you show up, you'll be amazed at how much capacity you have and how much you're willing to push yourself to do even better than before. And come back happy after that because you tried. If you have that doubt and you don't show up, then no one can help you, right? So even yesterday when Bihan said he didn't want to go to swim, I said, how about this? How about we go to the pool, you do dry land, and if you don't want to stay for the swim portion of it because the water is a little bit cold, then I'll bring you home. And he agreed to that. And guess what? Peer pressure. The minute he was there, he saw all his friends. He forgot all about the protest. So you gotta show up. That's the simplest thing you can do. The rest will take care of itself.
Awesome. Yep. In my own journey, I think showing up was the motto I started the year with. And, after you show up for many days in a row, you kind of build up an ego of it saying, I don't want to break my streak. I mean, I show up every day. So it kind of becomes a game with yourself and you just want to keep doing it. So great advice there. Love the fact that you use the same words that we're trying to promote here. So to all our listeners out there, look, the game is simple. You just got to show up every day. And that's what makes you a triathlete. You're just trying to be an athlete. So thanks a ton, Niyati. I think this was a great conversation. Love how frank and open you were, and I'm sure all our viewers or listeners will also like it too. So yeah, see you around the corner, and hopefully we'll meet soon.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Ram. We must connect soon again.
Absolutely. Yep. Take care. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.